In the introductory video of the channel, I promised you that the first project would be about the black pearl. Well, now the time has come. This time we don't have a 3D model because to build a wooden ship you need something else, construction plans. This model in this scale does not exist on the market, so I had to create everything from raw wood except for the metal parts. To build this ship, it took me more than 500 hours, but I'll try to squeeze everything in about 30 minutes. Probably from the video it won't come out, but the ship is around the size of my hand, and yet the level of details is the same of a larger model. So it's around 25 centimeters, more or less like that. But now enough talking and let's dive into it. To build a wooden ship, you need construction plans, and luckily I found everything I needed on this Japanese website. What we need is this file, just click on it, and now download this image. Now let's open a A4 blank page and import our file. Let's now draw an horizontal line and give it some thickness in order to make it more visible. I want the hull of the ship to be 20 centimeters in order to match with the 10 mm scale miniatures that I will use for the pirates. If we print this page, we know that this line will be exactly 20 centimeters. Let's place it on the center and scale everything until the line matches exactly the length of the hull. Now we know that all the sections of the hull are exactly in the scale we want, so we can just print them. However, I have an ordinary printer at home, so since the image is bigger than one A4, I will have to print more than one page in order to fit all the sections that I need. Of course, I will have duplicates. Now let's cut our paper in order to isolate what we need, that is to say, the sections of the hull. I've used a walnut wood board instead of plywood because it's stronger, and the hull will undergo some degree of stress. A layer on the top can reduce splinters during the sewing process. I have to make a cut in the sections of exactly the same width of our wood board. For the first layer of plankings, I used 1 mm wooden strips. I reinforce with vinylic glue each juncture. In the spaces between the sections of the hull, I fitted the supports for the cannons. These holes are just for references. I actually didn't need to make them. In the construction's plans, we had the top view of the ship, but now we have to cut in pieces because each deck would be at a different height. I drew guidelines to define the position of the planks on the deck. I painted the main deck, as well as any other wooden part of the ship, with polyurethane impregnating agent. To make the glass, I used transparent plastic. This one in particular comes from a pack of blueberries. The original model wasn't designed to include the captain's cabin, but I decided to be creative and make it anyway. So I had to create an empty space visible from above and from the sides. In order to lower the center of gravity of the ship, I inserted some pieces of lead in the bilge. I attached a wooden strip as guideline for the gun ports. I made the holes for the cannons. At this point I decided to make some modifications and increase the width of the gun port by 1 mm. For the handrail I used an L-shaped wooden strip. Having these wooden parts matching perfectly turned out to be harder than expected. It's incredible the amount of clamps you need to attach just a single wooden strip. Sometimes you find holes in the most annoying places and you have to fix them. I then made some space for the wires of the LED lights. At this point I told myself, okay, I made the captain's cabin, how about making also the captain and a fellow mate, and maybe they're also trying to kill each other. They're pirates after all. I decided to make some more room for the electric wires. I decided to go for a 2 lights setup in the captain's cabin, one in the front and one in the back. I finally sealed the captain's cabin. I finally painted the outer layer of plankings with polyurethane impregnating agent. Since I didn't know how exactly I would have made the cannon doors, I decided to prepare some ropes that would go from the inside out to hold the cannon doors. For the rudder, I used the smallest available metal hing that I could find on the market. I placed a piece of polystyrene in front of the cannon to avoid moving them while handling the model. These blocks are 1 mm by 2, so it takes some practice to catch them at the first attempt. I always make 2 knots, just to be safe. Making the dead eyes of the shrouds in this scale was probably the single most complex operation of the entire model. In less than a centimeter, in fact, I had to fit 2 dead eyes with 3 holes each and a rope coiled 3 times, passing through each dead eye in the correct order. And there are around 140 dead eyes in the entire model. I reinforced every point of contact between the ropes with vinylic glue. If the section of the wood you have to smooth is small enough, you can use the drill to smooth it out. That's what I did for the yards. To make the sails, I used a piece of cloth that I found inside a box of old glasses. Fishing sinkers. I use them creatively. I used isopropylic alcohol to clean the stem of the cannons. Finding a blackener that would work on copper, brass, on bronze wasn't easy, but at last I luckily found this highly toxic blackener that worked perfectly. Making a single cannon may take some time, but luckily there's a shortcut. They're less than 1 centimeter each. I made sure that the masts were perfectly centered. In order to align the yards, I just had to pull the right combination of ropes. For the figurehead of the ship, I used a 10mm soldier. Perfect scale, perfect material. The hardest part of working with such a small scale is that you can barely move your hands without touching anything. Despite the small scale, everything is working perfectly. I used my trusted brass blackener for the lanterns and for the decoration as well. I found this metal sheet of laser cut something, and well, they worked perfectly for the cannon doors. I yet don't know what they were meant to be originally. For the cannon doors, at last I decided for an outside-in approach rather than inside-out. Now the last piece of the model, an historically totally inaccurate Jolly Roger.
Welcome aboard the Black Pearl.